we'll call to order the town council meeting of Minturn, September 3rd, 2025. And can we do roll call, please?
Tom here.
Brian here.
Lynn here.
Dusty here.
Eric here.
Earl here, and Kate will be here in a few minutes. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Gusty, second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the regular agenda approval. Do we have any amendments to? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Eric, second by Gusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, does anyone on the board have a conflict of interest on any issue that is on our agenda? Hearing none. Give that again. Okay, next, council comments and committee reports. Do we have any? Nothing? Right?
No.
Lynn?
Just that the Derby fire is still burning. And it's going to be burning, I think, for a long time unless we get an awful lot of rain for an awfully long time. And I think the decision has been made to just let it burn through while protecting the eastern flank. But it could be become a lot larger. So it's likely that we're going to have smoke pollution issues this fall.
Thank you.
Had a High Five Media Access Board meeting last week. We mainly discussed fundraising, so we'll be hearing from me when Colorado Gives starts up. And then we discussed having our 40th anniversary party, which is going to be October 23rd. And I just wanted to remind everybody about a First Friday that we're having at the saloon. It's this Friday. It's from 4 to 6, and every one of these First Fridays have been really great events and great attending, and looking forward to this one also.
Myself and Rob have been working on getting another meeting with the U.S. Forest Service. And we finally got a date set for this coming Monday with the superintendent, Brian Glassbell, and the district ranger, Leanne Beldize. And so we're going to be working with them to come up with alternative ways of keeping us safe during the dry summers. And so the objective is to find anything and everything as far as a process that's going to be better than what we have. I'm hoping we will have a more comprehensive agreement with them before next summer, but I don't know if that's going to be possible or not. But also, we've invited Matt Scher and Jeff Schroll to the meeting as well, the Eagle County manager. And what we want to do is get stakeholders together after we've got a good list on it, because this situation certainly affected Vail last time we had that big fire up there. They had to evacuate Vail Mountain. So I think probably Vail would be interested in sitting in on that, and we're gaining support. We're trying to look for more supporters throughout the county, and then we would be, when we've got the process and what we want to try to do to move forward, I'd want to have that a major agenda item for the town council, so everybody can show up, give us their input, let them hear you, and And first, we would probably present what our findings have been at that time, and then try to see what we can gain from that, so. And also, the news they just announced that, the Forest Service is gonna lower from fire restrictions from stage 2 to stage 1. So that means the shooting range will be opening up again. So unfortunately, that's not gonna stay, but I do think we've got some rain coming in a few days, but at least the really freak out state that we were in 2 or 3 weeks ago is better, not perfect. So we'll keep working hard on that, and as soon as after that meeting, we'll go ahead and make an announcement after we've gotten where we want to be. And with that, we have special presentations. Oh wait, hang on. You got a report for us, or is it all?
Yeah, there was an updated report. I apologize for the typo on the broker discussion for August 20th. We're still working on that, but we will have something for the next meeting. I know we've kind of been pushing that,
Okay.
but we will. We have the sidewalk extension projects going on. If there's any complaints from residents or concerns or observations, just have them contact me, send me an email, manager@minturn.org, and we'll make sure we get those addressed. We've been working with Eagle River Inn and the Minturn Saloon to make sure that work doesn't disrupt what they have going on there. And we are working to address, I know, some of the longstanding issues with the trash cans being in the roadway. We're gonna make sure that we get that addressed. I think we will probably maybe have a discussion item on September 17th to talk a little bit more about kind of give you some updates from that managers advisory group that we've been meeting, and talk a little bit more about events in Parks and Rec and maybe what we may want to do for next year, and get some of your feedback on what you think about that. And that's it, unless there's questions.
So have CDOT's contractors gotten any better at communicating the state of projects on 24 coming into town?
I don't know about that. I think they've pretty much wrapped up those 2 projects that are there. So we're at least done with that. Now the things that are disrupting Maine are our own projects, and then I think the new water tap that's kind of going in. That's the 500 block or 600 block. But if you have any concerns about anything with CDOT, we can reach out to them.
No, I noticed that they put up another sign out there that says construction coming. I didn't know which one that is referring to. Maybe that's ours.
Yeah, let me find, I mean, it may just be talking about our sidewalk project, because we will have to do some traffic control for the sidewalk extension from Cemetery, but it's gonna be pretty limited. A gas line has to be relocated there, an Excel gas line, and that is gonna require, because most of this sidewalk extension, we won't need to close a lane of traffic, but for this relocation of this gas line with Excel, over the next week or 2, we will. And we're probably gonna be doing the traffic control for them just to get it over with as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think the main thing, just to head off all the questions that I'm sure we all get, is for the signage and any of the communications to be more specific about how people in the community can try to avoid the impacts. You know, like if they could put hours on the flashing boards, or any sort of information beyond just like road work, I think helps people. Everyone understands that we have to do these things, but it's nice when we kind of give them ways to mitigate that.
Okay.
And when the craziness was going on 2 or 3 weeks ago, I finally found the superintendent on the job, and he said that that was the last week they were going to be there. And they were gonna break off, and then the asphalt guys were gonna come in and pave the west lane of the highway all the way down to where the new paved asphalt is down there. Well, that never happened. They did come back, and they said they would be back in a couple of weeks to do some patchwork and stuff, which is what they did a few days ago, I think. So who knows what's going on? Never did talk to a CDOT representative, but I don't know if maybe the rain pushed it back, or whether it's just gonna be those crappy patches they put down on the road. Because that's about as thin a patch as they could possibly put down. He said it was gonna be a 3-inch layer. overlay. And if that's an inch, I'll be surprised, so we'll see how that happens. By the way, forgot my public comment section. So if there's anyone here that would like to address the council on any issue that is not on the agenda, now is the time to do it. Anyone? Jay, anybody out there?
It's not even Jay.
Jay?
There are no raised hands.
Sorry, no, there is not.
Okay. Okay. Next we have our.
Mouse doesn't move that fast.
He's consistent though. I think he's napping when he goes that. The special presentation is, we have Siri Roman here, Executive Director of ERWSD, to give us some new regulatory information.
Great, thank you. Could we put the slides up, please? I think I know a lot of you, but if not, I'm Siri Roman, the General Manager of Eagle River Water and Sanitation District. With me tonight, I have Kate Birchnell, who's one of the district board members and also a Minturn resident, and also David Norris, our Director of Business Operations. We wanted to come before you because in November, we will be asking voters a question as if we can get their support for a general obligation bond. And so this is a way to fund a project that's regulatory driven at our regional wastewater treatment plant in Edwards. We're a little unique in that if our voters say no, then it will be on rates. This is a project that has to be done. It's an unfunded government mandate. And so one way or another, we need to pay for it. And we've looked at the data and we would just want to come to our customers and ask how they'd like to pay for it. So that's the main reason why we're here tonight. Before I go into that, I did want to say, I don't know if you've all been able to see the lift station that we completed last year that takes Minturn's wastewater. We lift it up, then we have a force main, and then it gets treated in Avon. But that's an $11 million project that we completed last year. And I think we were going to have Jeff Schneider come and present it, but I think we missed a date. So if anyone wants to do a site visit, if there's ever a work session to go see that, it's a pretty amazing facility and really has reduced a lot of risk with redoing that, especially with the critical location. But I did reach out to Jeff, who's a resident of Minturn, and he said to thank you all for your support on that project. I think working together through that and making some added improvements with the trail and the river access really benefit the community. So thank you for that. Okay, so I'm gonna start with, on your agenda, we did have an excessive user update. I apologize for that. That was more for our water users. So I'm gonna skip that. It's mainly the whole message of that was let's stop wasting water. Let's leave the water in the rivers. You probably see it in the paper. We have a special campaign that we're reaching out to our excessive users who tend to use more than 30,000 gallons 3 months or more a year. But kind of come with us. Let's reduce the waste and keep the water in the rivers, especially a summer like this summer where we didn't have rain for 2 months. So I will not take your time on that unless you have any questions, since you guys handle your own water. And I'll switch gears and we'll just talk about wastewater. So Gusty knows all this very well. Gusty and I worked together for over 10 years in one of the wastewater treatment facilities. But the district we have, Eagle River Water and Sand District, we have 3 wastewater treatment facilities. Could I get next slide? We'll skip that one. Sorry, we'll just get to, there we go, thank you. We have 3 wastewater treatment facilities, one in Vail, Avon, and Edwards. Today, if we were to design the system, we would just have 1 at the end of the line. The reason why we have 3 is because of the way we developed. It was mainly just different metro districts over time, turning into towns and connecting. The good news is we return that clean water to the rivers sooner, which is especially important like times like now. Today, the call on the Eagle River went back on. So it's really great that we're returning water to the stream to boost those flows. And we're legally obligated to do so. So one of the reasons why we have 3 plants within a 16-mile reach is that we're obligated to return that water to the stream in those locations due to our water rights portfolio. Our 3 wastewater treatment plants are connected via collection system, so an underground pipe, and we're able to pass solids from Vail down to Avon and Edwards. We're ultimately, in Edwards, we call it the Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility because it treats district-wide solids. So that's East Vail to Cordillera, including Minturn, all of the solids are treated at the regional plant in Edwards, where we produce a Class A biosolid or a fertilizer that can be land applied. Next slide, please. So we have to do improvements at our plants due to a regulation called Regulation 85. It's driven by EPA, who in turn, through CDPHE, is requiring that all treatment facilities that are rated to treat over 2 million gallons per day or more are subject to this regulation. Unfortunately, all 3 of our plants are just in that threshold, and this is quite an extensive improvement to make it a treatment facility. So Regulation 85 is requiring that we reduce nutrients in the effluent or the clean water that we return to the stream. Nutrients are nitrogen and phosphorus, so naturally occurring elements that we need to live, but too much of them can be harmful for aquatic life. It can cause excess algae growth, reduce the oxygen, increase temperatures. And so while we don't see this eutrophication or this in the headwaters, you do see it in lakes and low flowing streams. That's kind of where you see it compound. So areas like the Chesapeake or the Gulf and certain lakes, you might see this pollution and the impacts. But the state is targeting all wastewater treatment facilities, like I said, that meet that threshold. I always say nutrients are very complex. The photo on the left is a photo I took at the Vail Wastewater Treatment Plant outfall. You can see a lot of algae, but you can also see a fish feeding. It's no coincidence that the gold medal fishery starts at our outfall because nutrients are also food for aquatic life and for the ecosystem. So they are complex, but we unfortunately do have to make this improvement at all of our plants. We completed Avon a couple years ago. You probably remember just south of Nottingham Lake, there were cranes there for several years. That was a $64 million project. And then now we're moving forward to Edwards to do that project. Next slide, please. This is estimated to be a $90 to $93 million project. It is to reduce the nutrients, but also the plant was built in the early 80s. And so all of our infrastructure, I mean, as you guys, all of us that were built, you guys are older than us, we have older infrastructure, and a lot of the reason why our water costs what it costs is because of aging infrastructure. So at this plant, there are a lot of areas that we need to upgrade, and there's a few operational limitations as well. So with that, I can turn it over to David, and he can talk about the funding and the options for that, unless you have any questions about the project. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Siri. Thanks for having us today. Jay, next slide, please. Like Siri had said, it's $93 million. Part of that cost point is one of the operational limitations that she spoke about at the last slide was the plant has to keep running while the work goes on. So of course that's included in the cost estimate as well. To fund a project of this magnitude, we really have 2 key strategies. It's either a general obligation bond or revenue bond. As you might be aware, general obligation bond is requires votes of the public and are property tax driven. What we would need to assess is 1.786 mils. This would be the need for each year to pay the debt on an annual basis for the next 30. Revenue bonds is, like Siri had indicated, if the general obligation bond does not pass, it will be in the rates, in the customer rates, and in a later slide I'll get to the impacts. Next slide, Jay. The impact to the typical customer looks like this. On the left there is $1 million valued home. So based on the mills we would need to assess, it's $112 a year. And our typical customer in the revenue bond flavor, which is in the rates, and our typical customer is a 3,000 square foot home and 5,000 to 6,000 gallons in the winter of use, would be $268 a year. The reason for the difference is we have 10,066 customers to divide the revenue bond amongst, and there's a lot more properties that pay into tax, and so that is the difference there.
Why are there more properties than there are users?
So we have 10,000 accounts, but there are a lot more properties that pay. There's more than 10,000 properties that pay into tax, and what they pay is based on the valuation of their home. So you can think of like multifamily. There's one account and units that are owned by different people.
So that's one example of why there's more.
So multi-family, would have only one, water and sewer.
So the
Yeah.
unit, the whole building that, let's say 20 units are in, we have one account usually that would pay, on the right side, would pay the revenue bond, but there may be 20 owners, each individual owners of the units potentially, and they would pay their own property tax.
So I'm just trying to figure out who this hurts, which way. And it sounds like, some apartment, owners, condo owners might be paying more actually under the general obligation bond.
It would it's all gonna be dependent on the value of each property
Right.
and how large or how they're billed in our system. It will be break-even points as it's assessed. For us, we're really trying to say like everyone's gonna do their own math and try to determine what works for them. But you can see like if you had $1 million home and if that home was 3,000 square feet and the GO bond does not pass, they will be paying that over there.
So,
Right.
Lynn, there are properties in the district that don't necessarily have buildings on them, so they are paying taxes to the district, but they're not paying rates. And then in our system, in our tax system, certain types of land are assessed at higher values than residential. So commercial is assessed at a higher level. Vacant land is assessed at a higher level. So you essentially you cast a broader net with a general obligation tax than you do with the rate structure, because that's limited only to parties who are actually using the service.
Gotcha. It just, on the face of it, is surprising that there are more than twice as many properties than there are, I'm trying to say this correctly. There's so many properties that don't use the sanitation, water and sand services. That's what is surprising.
I think it will come down to what Mike said, is that it's gonna be on the 29.1% assessed valuation on commercial land, commercial properties, and then there's also the 6.2% on the residential customers. What I'm showing here is a residential customer.
Gotcha.
Does that clarify? A little better.
Getting there, yes.
Okay, one thing I will mention is for us, for the district, we have very little operating mills that we assess to kind of do our day-to-day operations. Most of what we have in property tax driven revenue is bond, so debt. And so for me, the way that we've been looking at this is when we need to diversify our debt portfolio. So to only revenue bond, to only do something one direction all the time, there's better options when they present themselves. And we haven't been back since 2014 for a general obligation ask. That was for another wastewater bond. But when it makes sense, we do come and ask for that. And that's what this one does make more sense to at least ask the public which way they would like to pay. Because either way, we have to secure the debt and get the bond.
Are there interest rate differences between the GO and the revenue bond?
Good question. There's a little bit, but it's about 17 grand on 93 million, so I would say 0. But yeah, it's there. I knew that question would come. So, yeah. Any other questions? I will say from like the ones who purchase bonds, they like to see a lot of security. So the better security, the faster they sell, and usually that's more security on the general obligation than a revenue generally. Next slide, Jay. So this is in our budget packet every year. I did it a little early this year for obvious reasons, and the black bars kind of show the district and authority water and wastewater combined bills on the left and right there respectively. So this is our proposed 2026 rates. Again, subject to board approval, and the current 2025 rates of all the blue bars there, I don't really know what they have planned, but that's kind of what it looks like. On the left is a 5,000 gallon monthly use case scenario, and on the right there is you'll see the impact of the wastewater bond. What we do know is that there's 3 or 4 entities in our comparative list here that are going to be doing large projects that their rates will change. I just don't know how much yet.
I feel like we're getting thrown under the bus with facts right there.
None of us like to be in the top of that list.
No, but I will say on the right, you dropped down. So it was at the top on both. So that's a good thing for the term. Oh, yes. So one thing for us is you can really look at the top 5, 7 on each side and what those are mountain communities. The reason for the dollars you're seeing there for the services is due to math. It's denominator. How many customers here? 536. How many in the district? 10,000. Down there at the bottom, you can kind of see Fort Collins, Longmont, Loveland, Denver Water. 1.5 million customers to divide the same $93 million project. So that's why. So we definitely are feeling that. You can kind of see that on the bottom of these graphs are showing that front range area minus the anomaly Frisco there.
Why is Telluride even more expensive?
Telluride has been
Larger.
working on wastewater plant upgrades and other upgrades to their systems. So that is one that has shipped and it will be shipping. Good. Okay. Next slide, Jay. That's really all we got. As far as next steps are, we're out here trying to educate the public, doing presentations. I think we're on 16 now, something like that. But ways to engage is to share the information with community members, give us direct feedback, ask the questions, see what's hitting or not, what we need to address our messaging to. Like Siri had mentioned, we will have a ballot initiative, so it'll be mailed out October 10th and then in the coordinated election for November 4th. So, yeah, if there's any questions, that's all I have.
So you're at 60% design. What's your target date for starting this project?
I would say we're working with the boards to address the timeline of this project is now 2026.
So as soon as you get to 90%, and then you'll go out to bid for.
They're already starting. They did go ahead.
We did this project with Alternative Delivery, so we have the contractor on board. There's some early out packages that have started now, but not until the budget's approved will we start the larger part. But either way, David's preparing 2 budgets to fund it one way or another, and that's. And then, thank you, that's the other thing. So wastewater permits are, each permit has a discharge permit that's uniquely designed to protect the receiving stream water quality. The permit for Edwards requires that we're in compliance by 2029. And so like David mentioned, the construction sequencing through a wastewater treatment facility is pretty challenging. So we do need that duration to complete construction, make sure that we're in compliance before that time in our permit.
Thank you.
So after you're done with this project, if you get done with this project, is there any other major investments y'all need to make?
We're up river of you. I will say that like all of the utilities in the Western Slope, one of the reasons why a lot of our rates are going up is because of aging infrastructure. All of our infrastructure is 50 to 60 years old. So we have a large capital improvement plan for the next 20 years. For instance, we have almost 50 drinking water tanks in our service area because of the topography and because of the way we developed. Denver Water, I think, has 3. They're much larger. But a lot of ours are needing maintenance and repair. The downside of that is the money. The upside of that is we have a lot of flexibility with our system so that if there is a fire or a mudslide or a truck dumps over on Vail Pass, we have a lot of flexibility to maintain service either through treatment because they're connected, or through our operations. But the big project that's before us is the redevelopment of Bolts Lake. That is in design. We're at 30% design. I'm sure you saw the article in the paper. Pretty wide cost estimate for this level of design, but the middle of the range is $145 million. David and I are working with our boards and with Kate to determine if it's full steam ahead, how do we fund that and what does it look like? And then what projects have to go from a risk perspective and how do we fit that in? But that would not start before this one's paid off, or not paid off. It'll take 30 years to pay this off before this bond window. That's one thing that David, as the Director of Business Operations, he has to look at our bonding windows and when we can take out the next big bond. So this is the work that our board is going to be, that both the authority and the district board will work together. Of course, we'll share the information of all the projects that are needed to be done. Some of them are going to have to push in order to build Bolts Lake. But we certainly see the need for Bolts Lake, especially on a summer like this summer. You know, we had average snowpack and then Mother Nature didn't help us for 2 months. And so stream flows plummeted. And this is, if we hit this another year in a row, this is why we need Bolts Lake.
Will the Vail wastewater eventually have to have an upgrade too?
I am putting this on record that I will not build that project.
You're
I will do everything I
Is that what you're
can.
saying, you're gonna quit?
Yeah, I might be forced out. We've done our fair share between Avon and Edwards. And so we are working with our partners at CDPHE to come up with a creative solution not to do Vail. Vail's a much different plant. It's much smaller, but it has big swings because of the holidays. So it reaches over 2 million gallons per day around Christmas week, New Year's week. But the CDPHE has been open, but I've also been very, like, what we've invested to do to, you know, protect our rivers. We can't do it again at another project, not with what we have on the books. So hopefully we'll come up with a creative solution. So I am putting that on the record.
Well, speaking of creative solution with the significant cuts being worked on down the hill, you guys have insights on the impacts to you, since obviously a lot of this looks strictly self-funded within the district?
Yeah, do you want to talk about that? You mean just statewide with the budget cuts?
Yeah, I mean, well, how it directly affects ERWD, but
It really
does not?
No, not from that perspective, because what we're talking about for this project is one way or another, we gotta secure the debt. So it'd be property tax driven, so our other operational needs are funded with rates, 98% of them. The rest of it is very minimal property tax driven revenue, so from like cuts and things down there, we're not as impacted because we charge a rate and people procure the service and we collect the revenue needed.
I will say, we are paying attention to kind of federal legislation, and we're pleased to see that the small storage program is still being funded for reservoirs. And so we're hoping that stays we need to be fully designed, and that potentially could fund up to 25% of Bolts Lake. But this is the kind of project that it's designed for. So we're hopeful that stays and that those funds get released at that time. But other than grants, we have, very little impact. Thank you, good question.
Is the ballot language gonna specifically call out Edwards? Or is it gonna be?
It's gonna say regional treatment facility at Edwards. We want people to make sure it's clear that this impacts all of us who flush a toilet, not just the location. Really, our plants work as an ecosystem. That's kind of how I see it. They very much are connected and work together, and that's why we don't regionally where it's located. We just want to make sure people understand. But the language, the reason why we want to get out there is the language is just going to say, and we understand this is a really hard time to ask this question, but can we raise your taxes? We want people to understand if you say no, your bill could go up 20 to 25%, which is quite impactful on the wastewater side. So that's, or on total. So that's why we're trying to get it into the paper and share the message. And to your question, the impact is different depending on the value of your home and your multiplier. But for the large portion of our residents or customers, the GO bond is more advantageous.
And maybe I missed this. Did you discuss the fact that as a local tax as a general obligation tax, that's something you can qualify to write off under the state and local tax deductions that you can write off on your federal tax bill. So you can't write off your rates, you can write off those taxes.
Especially with the changes. Yeah, I usually don't get into that because people like to say things about tax. But yeah, that's a good point.
God knows a rate increase in midterm would be hugely popular. There's nowhere to go up. We're already number one. We're good.
We're chasing you though. Not funny.
Any other questions for us? Great, thank you.
Appreciate the
Appreciate your
work.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. All right. Next on the agenda is the business items. We have, first up is Resolution 36, Series 2025, a resolution approving a variance of 2024-01 at 161 Main Street. They're asking for a one-year extension. And I'll pass that off to whoever it is. Thank you, Madison.
So the title kind of, I feel, is self-explanatory. Staff and Spence were granted a variance for relief from the rear setback at 161 Main a year ago, actually to the day. And so variances per our code are only good for a year with the ability for council to give an extension of up to 1 year as long as the applicant demonstrates that failure to proceed with the development was beyond their control, that the development isn't speculative in nature, that the development still complies with the chapter of the community plan, and that there is reasonable likelihood that the approved development will be acted upon within the next year. And so, based on the letter that was included in your packet from the applicant, addressing all of those four different findings that council has to make a positive decision on, staff does believe that all of those findings can be made, and that the building will go through if this extension is granted. The applicants are here today to speak if you would like them to, but otherwise staff requests that you approve the resolution.
All right, any questions for Madison? Any questions for Spence or Steph?
Oh, really?
No? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 36, series 2025, a resolution approving an extension to variance 2024-01 for 161 Main Street.
I'll second that.
Motion by Gusty, second by Lynn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Continue knitting.
That is. You won't have to change our code if you're not ready next year.
We are working on it.
I know you are. Okay, next we have ordinance number 8, series 2025, second reading. An ordinance amending chapter 16 of the Minturn Municipal Code to add article 27, natural medicine businesses, and to make changes to the use tables in section 16-5-40, 16-6-70, and 16-7-60.
So this is an ordinance that y'all approved on first reading with the change that within the commercial and mixed-use zones in the tables that were presented to y'all last time, that the natural healing centers be changed to a use by right instead of conditional or limited use like you were previously suggested. So that change has been made, and so staff is looking for an approval on second reading.
And was any changes made from the first reading to now?
The changes requested of changing the mixed use and commercial zones from conditional to use by right.
Any questions for Madison?
First floor restriction.
Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Actually, I had
What?
well, it sounded like Tom had a question too, but I had, knowing that this is kind of like being requested that all towns are looking at this because this came from the state level, like, I haven't paid that much attention to what our neighboring towns are doing. Is this in line with what the rest of the valley is looking at or discussing, or is this completely out of line, or what? Where are we? Anyone looked into this? I don't know.
I can't speak to other jurisdictions in Eagle County, but the other municipalities my firm represents, when I've talked with my partners, is that they're treating it like a doctor's office. And if a doctor's office can go in his own district, a healing center or a micro healing center, they just classify it in the same way.
Yeah, the only two things I had was, one, and my disagreement previously was just to clarify the difference between proper language of a healing center where you're talking 5, 6, 8, 10 patients simultaneously versus a single service provider. And then the second question was, I thought there was disagreement about this first floor restriction, other than our continued pursuit to focus on the 500 feet of the 100 block and its limitations. If I'm wrong on that one, let me know.
That was certainly brought up at the last meeting, I think actually by you, Tom. But the motion made by Council 6-1 was to allow it on all floors in the commercial and mixed-use zone districts.
But not the 100 block.
The 100 block is a commercial zone district, so that was changed.
All right, I'm just reading the memo, which obviously is old, sorry.
Yeah, the memo in the packet was from the prior
Yep.
iteration of the amendments.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll open this up to public comment. Does anyone have a comment on this issue? Anyone worried about natural medicines? Anyone excited about natural medicine? I can call that on it.
So what is natural medicine exactly? How is it defined?
You want to take that?
So natural medicine means psilocybin or psilocin or other substances described as natural medicine according to Colorado State statute through 904, the Colorado Natural Medicine Code. Essentially, it's mushrooms.
This be like a store that will sell?
You please come up to the microphone and identify yourself and your address.
My name is Dave Bombard. I'm building a house over at Minturn North. So I'll soon be a member of this community. Is this like an establishment to sell mushrooms, or is
It is not. So as the town attorney alluded to, this is treated more like a doctor's office. So you show up with an appointment, they administer it there in the office. You are not allowed to leave until it clears your system. You can't go in, pick it up, and then take it home to have it.
Thank you.
Jay, anybody out there?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing. And if there's no further questions,
I think it's important to note for anybody that didn't maybe catch the first reading, that the main reason we're bringing this up is that there was a bill passed at the state level that then basically all the towns in Colorado have to make it, I'm gonna explain this wrong, but basically have to adopt their code in order to allow these. You can't just ban it. We have to basically.
We have no local control as to whether it lands here. We can simply direct where it goes and the time frame in which it occurs.
Yeah, so.
right.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 8, series 2025, an ordinance of the town of Minturn, Colorado, amending the Minturn Municipal Code and to add Article 27, natural medicine business in Chapter 16, and to make changes to the use tables in Section 16.540, 16.670, and 16.760.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion by Eric, a second by Gusty. Roll call, please.
Kate, aye.
Tom, A.
Brian, aye.
Lynn, I.
Gusty, aye.
Eric, aye.
Earl, aye. Okay. That one's on the books. Next, we have ordinance number 9, series 2025, first reading, an ordinance amending chapter Article 8, Chapter 7, Article 8 of the Minturn Municipal Code to allow for the installation of Phase 3 certified wood burning devices.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ooh, too loud. Scott Hun with the Planning Department. Before you is an ordinance that would propose to make a minor amendment to Chapter 7, Article 8 to allow the use of Phase 3 wood burning or solid fuel burning devices, not just as replacements to old crusty fireplaces that aren't efficient, but in new construction as well. For years, the town has regulated the installation of wood burning or solid fuel burning devices in new construction for very good reasons. I think historically the town has had air quality control issues. I think a lot of communities in our valley have experienced the same thing. Places like Beaver Creek once allowed wood burning stoves, and then they figured out that they'd have these inversions within that valley and everything would be filled with smoke, horrible air quality. So that's when they took a similar action. So that's just one example, but I think for years that has meant that new homes in this community are installing gas appliances and things like that. The town has allowed for pellet stoves. I think at the time, pellet stoves, as opposed to a solid, wood burning stove, were much more efficient. So those were allowed to replace wood burning fireplaces or wood stoves. We did receive a request earlier this year from Mr. Bombard, who is building a home in Minturn North, and whose primary heating source will be, I believe, a heat pump. So that's going to be the primary heat source, but as a backup to that, or just something to augment their heating needs, Mr. Bombard approached our office and said, hey, can we, if we were to do this now as we're constructing so we can, have the right chimneys and so forth designed for the house, is this something we could do? And as it's written right now, they would not be able to put in what's called a Phase 3 or a certified Environmental Protection Agency certified solid fuel burning device that in a lot of ways, or at least in a lot of models today, can be more efficient than a pellet stove. So we did some research. Mr. Bombard did quite a bit of research, and that was my request to him is if you'd like this to move forward in an ordinance, please do the research, provide that to me so we can see what you're looking at. He did that. And I think we as staff feel comfortable that moving forward, this could be something that probably is not going to be taken up by a lot of homeowners, but for new construction, in addition to replacing older inefficient units, this might be something that benefits folks. As long as we can, as a staff and the building official can receive certification that whatever they're proposing meets the state's requirements under the Air Quality Control Commission. So.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So Phase 2, Phase 3, evidently they're pretty much the same right now?
My understanding is that a Phase 2 is the same as at the federal level is the same thing as a Phase 3, what the state of Colorado considers a Phase 3.
Okay.
And Dave, jump in if I'm misspeaking or that.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. And so how does a Phase 3 fireplace, heating it wood, compare to a natural gas emissions?
Dave, do you have any idea? I know you provided some facts and figures regarding pellet stoves versus wood burning.
Yeah, so in terms of emissions, well, like CO2 or soot, or so the new Phase 3 or Phase 2 wood burning fireplaces are generally much better, lower emissions, and more efficient than any pellet stove, most pellet stoves. All the pellet stoves I looked at, so I was kind of like, well, I can put a pellet stove in, so a little backup. We have a heat pump system that on the coldest nights in Minturn is not quite enough. So this is supplemental heat because it gets to minus 15 or something like this, X number of days, and they did a calculation on that. And so I was like, well, on those nights we're we probably will put in like a resistance heating, which is not very efficient at all. So, but I was like, oh, we'd like to put in like a wood burning stove, but that is not allowed, but a pellet stove is. So I looked at pellet stoves, but then as I was looking at pellet stoves, I discovered that, well, pellet stoves are a lot worse in terms of emissions than most of these phase 2, phase 3 wood burning fireplaces. So I was like, well, it's a lot nicer ambiance. Like we don't use it very much. Like we live in Singletree right now in Edwards and have I guess a grandfathered in regular fireplace. And we use it, probably a couple dozen times, in the winter and kind of family ambiance and around Christmas time and things. So it was like, oh, it'd be nice to have that. But also as an additional heat supplement for the house. So that's how it came about. I don't know.
You ever see a comparison?
Yeah, the comparison between one of the things I did look at is natural gas when burned is methane, right? Natural gas is 95% methane. So when it does burn, it is very efficient in terms of when it's burned, like what comes off of it. But the problem is in most houses, these systems leak. And methane is like 10 to 15 times worse greenhouse gas than CO2, right? So we actually cut the pipe to our house. So we have a full electric house in Minturn North that we're building. We didn't want to have any natural methane in our, coming into our house. So that's kind of where this came from. So I think if everything's perfect, yeah, a natural or a gas burning fireplace would emit less, but a lot of times that's one of the issues is that the methane natural gas lines leak.
Can I just add a point of clarification for the council that it's key to understand that the 2021 International Residential Code does not permit somebody to build a home and use a wood-fired stove or a pellet-fired stove to count as a device that heats the home to adequate requirements. They must do that through a fixed heat source, such as electric, natural gas, or whatever. So although he's saying they will use it to supplement, homeowners could not use that to mitigate the requirement of heating the home with natural gas or electric to the required indoor temperatures.
Yeah, that's why we do have to have this supplementary resistance electric heating in our house, right?
So yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
Hi, Robert Creasy. I'm at 453 Pine Street. Just one clarification as far as CO2 goes. With natural gas, you're using a fossil fuel, so you're adding CO2 that would otherwise not be in the atmosphere. With wood, it's actually a renewable resource. And if you burn wood, there's also wood growing that could be replaced in the forest. So it's arguably a net zero carbon contribution when you burn wood compared to natural gas, which is an increase. So as far as global warming goes, wood's better than gas.
Mr. Mayor, I have just a couple more pieces of information, and this did come from Dave Bombard. He looked at a pellet stove and also a wood-burning stove that was EPA certified. In this particular model of pellet stove, the Enviro Meridian pellet stove is listed on the internet as having an efficiency rating of 75% and emits approximately 1.84 grams of particulate matter per hour. Whereas the model of wood-burning stove, the Green Mountain 60 that he provided to us, it is EPA certified. It has an efficiency rating of 79%, so a higher efficiency at just 0.6 grams per hour. So I think that was, something I tried to put across in my memo is that, I don't know exactly when the town's air quality regulations, banning wood stoves was put into place. Yeah, I bet you do know. But it seems like the technology's come a long way, so.
It was back in the 1990s when it was just, winters had gotten to the point where it's just a constant smoke haze during the winters, and so that's when we passed it. We cleaned it up real well, so it sounds like the phase 3s are going in the right direction, right? Definitely be better than what we had before. Okay, any other questions for that?
My only, it seems totally reasonable. My only question was like, would it make sense just to get rid of pellet stoves in our code and replace it with these? Because it sounds like they're much more efficient and clean, but whatever. It's good.
Well, we don't
Eat
know
real
who
well.
has, who has a pellet stove in the town.
Well, you just have to, it'd be going forward. It's not like you're saying everybody has to go back and remove it. It's
Just
all
a
looking forward.
replacement.
One change I might suggest between, I don't know if we'll do a second reading on this one. The definition of a solid fuel burning device includes wood. It also includes coal. I'm not sure if we can just strike that from
Yes,
our,
please.
and outlaw coal burning, but that's a change that I'd be happy to make.
Yes.
Okay, so no further questions, I'll open this up to the public, as we already have. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to address council on this issue? Still nobody out there?
Oh, sure.
Okay, close the public hearing. Okay, so, there's no further discussion? We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 9, series 2025, an ordinance of the town of Minturn amending chapter 7, article 8 of the Minturn Municipal Code to allow for installation of phase 3 certified wood burning devices in compliance with Colorado Department of Public Health and Air Quality Control Commission regulation number 4.
Second that.
He was gonna look into that and then on second reading, discuss the tool call.
Okay, we have a motion by Gusty and a second by Lynn. Roll call, please.
Kidder.
Tom, I.
Brian, I.
Then I,
Gusty, aye.
Eric, aye.
And roll that. Next, we have ordinance number 10, series 2025, first reading, an amendment to chapter 19, article 5 to add the Secretary of Interior's design guidelines as a review standard.
So, as I'm sure y'all remember the very many meetings we had last year about historic preservation. Out of those meetings, ordinance 10, 2024 passed with 7 different options that y'all selected in order to kind of streamline the historic preservation process and make things a little bit easier and a little bit more guaranteed for homeowners, or for property owners, sorry. One of those options was to eliminate the Secretary of Interior's design guidelines and just default to the town's design guidelines, as they are less prescriptive. They're not a 200-plus page document that somebody has to kind of comb through in order to make sure what they're proposing is in line with that. However, an unforeseen consequence of removing the Secretary of Interior's design guidelines as a standard from our code is that if it remains not a standard, if y'all do not decide to adopt this ordinance, then we will no longer be considered a certified local government. And one of the biggest benefits of being a certified local government is that we are eligible for grants through History Colorado, as well as the people in our town, not just us as town staff and as a body, but the people within our town. And we are currently actually in the process of administering a $25,000 grant from History Colorado in order to do a historic resource survey of the Old Town character area. And while I am aware that adding this back into the code may be considered complicating the process again, I do think it's important that we remain a certified local government at least for the duration of our grant. The grant is slated to end in June of next year, just to give y'all some timelines. I will be honest, we have only ever had to apply these standards once, to the saloon when their awning fell off when they took the roof off, which triggered a whole host of things, them being designated as historic, and then having to apply for a certificate of appropriateness and have to meet these standards. I don't believe they were burdensome to the saloon when they went through it. We, staff, I will own up to the fact I'm not a historic preservation expert by any means. That is not my background, but I went through the document and I found several different criteria that I believe the saloon met through their plans, took them through HBC. As it was the first one, it actually went to council as well for approval, stating, hey, they've met all of these different standards within this very long, detailed document. And so as the fiscal year for the state ends in actually September 30th, and we are required to submit an annual CLG report on everything that we've done within that year, meetings attended, any code changes done, trainings by the commission members or staff, etc. They continue to look at, obviously, as I just referenced, the code that we have on the books and whether or not it still meets the criteria of being a certified local government. So I am asking y'all tonight to approve this ordinance, adding the Secretary of Interior's design guidelines back in as a standard so that we can continue considering ourselves a certified local government.
So does that mean it's deleting all the options we put into the code?
Not at all. We still have the 5-year, you know, if you've applied to do something, you go through the 2-week stay process, nobody nominates you, you're good for 5 years, except in the case of demolition, that's not going away. We're still requiring a minimum of 2 nominators in order to trigger that nomination. People can still come through and see if they kind of just go ahead and nominate their structure to see whether or not it's going to be designated or not. All of that will still stay. It is merely just option 1 that will be eliminated, which is, instead of now having 1 design guidelines, our own very non-prescriptive design guidelines, we will hopefully now have the 2, the Secretary of Interior's and our own.
Okay, so basically everything will stay the same except option 1?
Yes.
And option 2 is eliminating redundant approval requirements, which is kind of the same thing as 1, right? Because that's 2 sets of design guidelines. That's redundant, right?
Eliminating option 2 was
Eliminating potentially redundant approval
yeah.
requirements.
I will be honest, because that ordinance was so long ago, I'm not quite sure how we addressed option 2, but if they were truly addressed the same way, then I don't believe they would have been 2 different options. I think we would have just said, hey, there are 6 options, not 7. So that leads me to believe that there was another way we addressed options 2 rather than just eliminating the 2 sets of design guidelines.
Okay, any questions for Madison? Good. I can't believe how long we went through that last year. Oh my God. Okay, I'll open this up to the public. Oh, man's right on it.
Lynn Tage, 253 Pine Street. I'm also on the HPC Commission. Is it to my understanding that if a person says yes to a historical home and wants to do addition or something like that, if they go through the state, they can apply for grants and certain benefits, one of them being a big tax deduction, et cetera. If we lose the local government, can they still do that?
That's a good question. You are right. If somebody is designated historic and they pursue a state level designation, not just a local level designation, and they agree to adhere to all of the different state requirements, which could be above and beyond our own, then yes, they can get tax credits.
And that would be their decision.
And that would be their decision.
But if we lose the government, can they still do that?
I will try and find out before second reading.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. You have a question, Dave? Or Rob? Anybody else want to make a comment? Anybody out there, Jay?
No, sir.
Closed public comment. Now it's back to the board to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve town of Minturn ordinance number 10, series 2025. Ordinance of town of Minturn, Colorado, amending chapter 19, article 5 of the Minturn Municipal Code, adding the Secretary of Interior design guidelines as a review standard.
Second.
Okay, motion by Tom, second by, was that Kate?
Yep.
Okay, roll call, please.
Kate, aye.
Tom, aye.
Brian, aye.
And
STI.
Eric, aye.
And Earl, aye. And then last of the business items, resolution 37, series 2025, a resolution to enter into an agreement with the municipal advisor. Mike, I assume that's you.
Yes. I guess I would note that we are still waiting to hear back from the municipal advisor about the comments that we submitted last week. And in light of the fact that the main comment that we're waiting for is pricing, which really kind of has to be in the agreement, I'm going to recommend that we continue this to the next meeting.
Yeah. That's a good recommendation.
Yeah. We do have a question.
Of course, there, isn't there a fact that depending on the funding mechanism would determine how the payment would be dealt with, is that?
So there was, in the presentation made by the municipal advisor, there was a pricing scheme and a cap on total fees that were in those materials that I transported or transplanted into the agreement. I then got back from the advisor an email saying, oh, that applies to the form of funding where we handle the bond issuance in-house, but it might be different if we're not doing that work. And that was the last communication that I had from him. So
When was that communication you sent?
that was Friday of last week.
Probably want to give him a call this week, see what's going on. We need him now.
Spence had a question. I think Spence had a question.
Let's go ahead.
Sorry, I know this is a resolution, but
Yeah, I don't even like to look.
I can write another letter.
You can wave all you want, I'll look for you.
Spence Neubauer, 444 Eagle River Street. My only concerns are the dual responsibility that you addressed upon. But in his presentation, did he say they could act as both? Because it looks to me like federal regulations don't allow them to underwrite a bond that they municipally advise on. And they state that on their website.
And again, this is not an area that I'm an expert in, but based upon the materials that, oh, hey, we have, why don't we let the expert chime in on this? All right.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be with you. To address that last question, you're correct in that we are not allowed to serve as municipal advisor and publicly offer the issue at the same time. The arrangement that was described by Mike was a private placement that is permitted under municipal advisory rules.
Okay. And then the other one is just that they have a SEC self-reported action in 2015 for lack of due diligence on a very similar issue that they paid $220,000 about for and received a C&D from the SEC. But so we just want to make sure that the due diligence is performed. Not that we shouldn't go with them, but things to think of.
Thank you, Spence. Good to see you, Troy. Did you have a problem with Mike's red line?
No, I can't speak to it. That was before me joining the firm in 2018. I joined from UMB Bank, and I don't believe we've had any records of findings since that time. But happy to share our track record. I think that's part of our due diligence in this process. And so, but I'm not aware of that particular situation.
So it's the case that the price that's been quoted so far does not include the situation where Minturn, where you guys do not do the private placement for us.
It does, and I'm afraid maybe that's my fault that I've not made that more clear. There was a chart that was included. That chart applies to the public offering method, in which I'm not participating as underwriter at all. You know, quite honestly, I've taken this back to my internal group, and we're improving our RFP responses in response to this, because honestly, I didn't mean to intentionally create that confusion. That was our oversight, and certainly we provided pricing for each kind of scenario that we kind of foresee, which is a public offering, a private placement, or just hourly. And so that's kind of our standard response. But I've really appreciated the scrutiny into our pricing. And so I've already talked to my colleagues internally about improving that to make sure we're being as clear as possible.
Well, number one, that seems to me to be an enormous omission. Number two, I'm concerned that you haven't come up with any pricing to date for being just a municipal advisor without us having to do a private placement through you.
I have provided that information. I provided a fee schedule based on a public offering. I provided a fee based on a private placement, and I provided an hourly fee as well if I'm to be paid just hourly and not transactionally. So
I don't understand what's missing here.
What's missing is what Mike pointed out a few moments ago. What's uncharacteristic about this process from Northland's standpoint is that it doesn't typically take this long to get feedback on client comments. And I will admit and hold my hand up, that's not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. I've emailed my internal colleagues multiple times to reply to these comments. And I'm sorry for the delay in that regard.
So that's the cause of the delays. You're waiting for them to get back to you?
Yes, correct.
Mike, did you have any comment on that? We're anxious to get you on board.
And I'm anxious to work with you all. I did listen. I want to work with you all. So whatever situation is most comfortable for you all, I'm willing to work on it. But I did provide the pricing for the different situations because I'm actually required by regulation to do that. And so my principal did sign off on our proposal. So we take that part very seriously. But as I said, it seems like we need to make it more clear. So we will. But in terms of getting an answer to you, I've been bugging, and I'm hoping for a resolution tomorrow.
Okay. Mike, it seems like we're just waiting for answer and clarification of the RFP. Is that important to get that resolved while waiting for his internal people to deal with it?
Again, the agreement needs to have 3 sections on compensation, based upon the 3 different options. And The version that we were provided didn't have really, at least from my perspective, specific language on those three options, and I think we want to get that clear in the agreement. Money is what this is about, and we want it to be clear what we're going to eventually owe Northland for their services.
Could you restate once more what's missing from the agreement with respect to?
If I may, we're not allowed to necessarily provide different ways we can get compensated. Mike's correct that there are three ways, but there were not three ways presented in our municipal advisory agreement because the regulation allows us to negotiate this. So I want to choose kind of one or the other, and admittedly and candidly, the regulation allows me to start work and we can settle that. And I would not ask for any payment. If we can't come to an agreement, then I wouldn't ask for any payment. But the regulation does allow me to start my work and finalize the pricing discussion. Ultimately, folks, I want you to be the most and utmost comfortable with it. And so ultimately, we can't consummate it until then, but the regulation does allow me to start work in a best efforts to assist the client in the fiduciary duty.
So basically, the payment sections were in the RFP, but not in the contract.
Correct, because in the RFP, we have to provide all three because we don't always know which one the client wants. And so for me, I believe we can provide up to two, or we can provide a not to exceed maximum. I'm very comfortable with that in these arrangements. Ultimately, I think I don't have enough information to make a formal recommendation on what type or financing or what our options are. So for me, I think maybe it's most transparent if I work on a hourly basis, but again, I want to do what's most comfortable for you.
Hey, Mike, what are you comfortable with? Which scenario do you want to proceed with?
So I believe that the point of hiring a municipal advisor is that they will go out, they will look at the capital markets and the options that are available. They're then going to provide you with, I think we talked about last time, a matrix of options with different pricing. Not his pricing, but the market pricing to finance the debt under different scenarios. So what I had expected in the agreement was that, because again, there's kind of three general categories in which this can happen, and private placement, public placement, and then the municipal advisor working on an hourly rate, which again, I'm not sure if we have a formula that says if it's a private placement, this formula prevails. If it's a public placement, this formula gets used. I don't know why you would then have an hourly rate structure, because
correct. That's correct, Mike.
Yeah, getting to the issuance of debt, you're going to either go down this road or this road. And
correct.
We will have built in a compensation mechanism that again, it's based on the amount of the debt that's issued at the end of the day. So we're not saying it's $43,000 at the end of the day. It will be based on the total bond issuance. But I feel like we have one of the two scenarios in the version in front of you. I'm hopeful Troy can get us the second scenario. We can get that inserted in there, at which point I prefer to bring this back and say, here's what we've got, and let's get this signed.
And for whatever it's worth, and I'll leave this with Seth and or you all to decide. I'm happy to start in the interest of wanting to work with you. I believe we can reach a settlement. And like I said, quite honestly, I'm a little embarrassed that we haven't had our comments back yet. So I have to eat that. But that doesn't stop me from wanting to work with the town and anxious to do so. So for me, it was important for me to be a part of this meeting, just to make sure that everything gets straightened out.
It seems like we need to table this until we get something.
I think we're continuing it to the next agenda. I mean, I will say in kind of the defense, at least under the private placement, so I found a couple of examples of municipal advisor agreements online and looked at the fees that were charged under those agreements under different scenarios, and the fees that Northland had put down for a private placement were very competitive with what I saw in other agreements. So it's just, we need to nail down the two scenarios that are contemplated under the agreement. We want to have an agreement that fully encapsulates what is going to happen here, and I think we can have that done in 2 weeks. And Troy just needs to do, I guess, sounds like a little bit of internal cat herding to
That's putting it politely.
I'll make a motion to continue resolution number 37, series 2025 to our September 17th meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Eric, second by Dusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? If you have just a lot of spare time and want some entertainment, Jared is going to be presenting his design and cost estimates on our water treatment plant at the 90% level. So you might want to hang out and get some good.
I will hang out. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Troy.
Of course.
Okay, now we're on to discussion direction items. Next item is stop signs at Taylor and Minturn Road, which are new stop signs and including some crosswalk art.
Can we split this into two things and then talk about the crosswalk art first? And that's for the crosswalk in front of the saloon in Eagle River Inn. And we have Jennifer Holmes here, who is one of the artists who's willing to volunteer her time. The town would just pay for materials. And I don't know if you want to come up, Jennifer, and maybe talk about the options, and we wanted to get some ideas from council about what you would like to do.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Holmes, 453 Pine Street, and I'm excited to volunteer my time, as I did with the street art for the Minturn Market. But I am interested in some design directions, some ideas. I also think I need a little bit more understanding of what the safety regulations are to move forward. But I just want to put that out there that I'm excited to be a part of the process. I will submit my supply costs and I'm happy to volunteer my time. But if you all have any specific design thoughts, intentions behind the artwork, what you would like for Minturn to, how you want to represent Minturn, I'm really open to collaboration. So just want to get your thoughts.
Okay, so we have five photographs of some artwork?
Excuse me?
Five images of.
Oh, yes, those were just examples. So those really weren't intended to be proposal ideas. I was thinking geometric, colorful, but, and I'm happy to put forth a detailed proposal for your approval, but I just, before doing that, want to know what the intention is.
And I just want to add that Jennifer did that beautiful rainbow street art on the pavement of the Minturn Market. It's kind of faded away now.
That's because the asphalt was crap,
but yeah, and that was really, really beautiful.
Is there some sort of special paint you could use that maybe lasts longer for asphalt surfaces?
I did use asphalt paint.
They do?
Is the paint that's used for striping and whatnot. But I did not put a top coat on it, and I think if we put some sort of a sealant on it, and I think with the new streets, I think it will
stick better, it won't crumble up.
Yes, although that section outside of the saloon, my understanding from Jeff is that that is not going to be repaved, and so that is not going to be particularly durable, especially with snow removal. So that is something to consider.
So are we looking at those particular areas where we're putting in stop signs on Minturn North? Is that the main work, or are you gonna be doing them?
I think the main one was the saloon, the crossing over to Eagle River and then over to where people would cross to head to the parking lot.
Yeah, my understanding there are 3 crosswalks. There's the new one on Taylor Street. There's one from the saloon towards that parking area, and then from it makes like an L. So one going this direction across the parking as you're heading towards the Mexican restaurant, and then one right at as you're heading up towards Taylor Street, and then the one that links the bike path. And then there was discussion about the pathway along the parking lot. So there were 4 different asphalt art projects.
Well, I will say that of the ones submitted here, which aren't proposals, I really like the geometrical ones, and I love the fish one.
I like the fish one, but it should be rainbow, not dark.
Right, like rainbow trout.
And then I like the last 2 myself.
Yeah, I'd vote for a lot of color, so.
Color?
Yeah.
I'm not so big on the flowers one, and the white.
The other question I had is there was discussion about doing the parallel white stripes or the horizontal stripes. That's more like the railroad style striping. And I'm just wondering, for safety, does it make a difference if the lines are going parallel, or for maintenance? If you were to go back over with the white striping, if it's not particularly durable, would town prefer to have a design that incorporates the white horizontal bars as opposed to the?
Yeah, I think that's, is the typical kind of white stripe on crosswalks, I think is important because they'll know what that is. Okay, there's some, it's something we all know, and I think it'd be maybe a more safer way to go.
I mean, the piano keys is the typical standard, and like that's what CDOT would do. I guess just for the council, it's like if she's gotten a little feedback, but and maybe we can have Jennifer come back with some specific proposals, and then we can have Jeff review it and say this is what we'll do to make sure that it addresses safety issues, if that's productive.
What's the timeline on this, or proposed timeline? To actually do it?
Needs to occur in the next 2 months, I think.
He said that the road work would be complete by then, hopefully by the end of September. So then we can move forward at the end of September.
I mean, for what it's worth, the future residents of Minturn North and the current residents of Taylor would appreciate an opportunity to pitch in their opinion, as opposed to us looking at 5 submittals that aren't really submittals at all, beyond generic guidelines. So I would think they have an opinion.
Would you want to do
like a quick survey on?
Yeah, maybe we. I guess I always like to give people something. Maybe Jennifer, you could just prepare a few, like geometric whatever, and then we can just get the input and then shape it from
Absolutely,
there.
put it out in the town newsletter and people can.
Well, I'm sure people would
Or
want
have
fish and
it
other
open out.
things over there by Game Creek for that one, just as an example. Probably for the 3-way intersection, a taped outline of a body.
Instead of this, like,
now at the saloon.
would it make sense just to like print a bunch of options up and take them to a first Friday and have people vote that show up and just run with that, so we're not like people asking the public for art direction.
2 days.
Well, that's what I'm saying, just send out a blast of examples and they can throw their 2 cents so they've got input. So.
That work? We can do that.
So yeah, I'll put together what you think is gonna work.
Okay.
Bottom line, yeah, and
Sounds like you'll open.
Yeah.
Trust the artists.
Yeah. So just one Robert, 453 Pine Street. One thing that Jeff was saying is the like the 2 white lines. That's something that the town could always maintain if we just say, okay, he could put those in anytime that she could come in and fill in between it, that might be an easier approach than the bars, which would require like integrating with the art, whereas if you just have the two straight lines, the town could maintain those lines regardless of the art, I guess.
Well, on that note is, the crosswalk at the country club, since that is 24, has that didn't work at any point since they don't pay any attention to the lights anyhow?
What's the question?
So the crosswalk, the really highly utilized crosswalk at the Saloon and Alpine Kind, or not the Saloon, Country Club and Alpine Kind on 24 needs to be repainted. We talked about that before, but that's on CDOT.
Yeah.
But really needs to happen. I mean, the painting's great. Unfortunately, most people continue to ignore it even when you're on the crosswalk.
Let me reach out with Jeff and we'll make contact with CDOT about that. That of course will have to meet their standards, which is just the piano key, white.
But to Robert's point, for the ones that we do artwork in, with the probability of some of that eroding or changing artwork, having something that's permanent, and then the interior of it can be altered as time goes on with other artwork, might be a pretty good idea.
Okay, so why don't we make sure we're giving good direction here. Is everybody in agreement with letting Jennifer submit a few options for everyone to choose? I don't know if Jennifer can get that together in 2 days for the first Friday, but.
I think we can get like 3 or 4 and then we can probably just put them on the website and people can just like submit a vote and
do it.
Just do that too. Yeah.
So, is that sound okay with council?
Yep.
Yes.
They were doing 4?
Believe so, yes.
Okay.
Clarify that with Jeff, town engineer.
One other thought on materials, just to make sure we include some of that like reflective dust in the paint, just for high visibility at night.
I'll talk to Jeff about that.
Cool.
I think this would be this standard.
You could use that gel nail paint that just came out, said is cancer causing or some dang thing. Sound like that stuff hangs around for a little bit. Okay, never mind.
And then the second thing here, I did meet with Jeff Spinell, the town engineer, about on-site with Public Works. We have the stop signs for where Taylor comes into Minturn Road. And we are gonna proceed with that. I mean, unless there's council direction otherwise. I think the one issue we're just waiting on is putting a stop sign from traffic that's coming from Maine, where there's the townhome right there and that sidewalk ends, is challenging because if you put it on the other side of the sidewalk, it's not visible. And if you put it in the asphalt, a plow is going to hit it. So Jeff is gonna do some research. I'll probably hear back from him by tomorrow about if we could have one like on an arm, so the stop sign can kind of hang out where it's visible. That's just the only thing that's holding us up there. And then there was discussion about the 4th Street in Minturn Road and 4th Street in Taylor about stop signs there. So we can have a discussion, get some feedback there. And that came up from the citizen comment that we got at the last meeting. I just would caution the council on using stop signs for speed control or traffic control. Most engineering guidelines recommend against that. They generally don't improve outcomes and sometimes they worsen outcomes because people drive faster to make up for the time that they stop. So I don't know if there's any desire to explore that on those 2 areas that were on that map.
So right now on 4th Street, we have stop signs coming off of 4th Street to Taylor and to the, I call it County Road, but what the proposal is putting them on like Taylor and County Road to stop them at 4th Street.
Yeah, we just wanted to have a discussion on that if that was a desire of council of that direction.
And there's on Taylor Street right there, there's already stop signs.
Right.
That's a 3-way stop.
But he's talking about putting a 3-way stop.
At Taylor and 4th.
No Taylor.
They're not
Minturn
Taylor.
Road and 4th. Everybody keeps saying Taylor. There's already.
Is there one on them? So sorry, and
That's not Taylor, that's Minturn Road and 4th.
Right here, that's a 3-way.
This is
Yeah,
gonna remain.
they have Taylor there, but I think if we got rid of
This one is
Don't
what
put
they're
stop
that
sign
one, I think.
here.
I agree. The Minturn Road ones, I agree with Fourth and Taylor at the bottom there. The ones with Fourth and
Going off reservation.
that seems to be inviting, what you were talking about, I think.
Yeah. So I guess we would just focus on, is there a desire for Fourth and Minturn Road?
So the only, two things on that, based on the prior public comment, that there were a lot of rebuttals to that. One, I don't agree. Same road that was there, now it's paved. Two, it's 35-mile-per-hour speed limit once you go over the bump. Now it's 25, I'm not sure why. People are gonna drive like idiots one or the other. Three-way stop at Taylor and Fourth already exists, should continue to exist. And then a one-way stop at Fourth, letting out onto Minturn Road already exists, should continue to exist. Beyond that,
I would disagree with people are gonna drive like idiots one way or the other. I think, as you mentioned, stop signs and all these signs and speed limit signs are the result of bad road design. So everything that we can do in order to, so I'm gonna use Crested Butte as an example again. They've built hundreds of planter boxes around town. Anyone that's been to Crested Butte in the last 5 years has noticed this. They put them in the middle of roads and the medians and put reflective things and speed limit signs on them. That will slow people down. It effectively narrows your corridor. They put art boxes up in order to pinch in certain places. They've put temporary little roundabouts up and traffic calming measures like this. So they've gotten to the point where these work so well that they basically have told their staff to just make a bunch of them, and they don't have to go to council every time they want to try putting a planter box in the middle of something in order to calm traffic down. And I think we should get to that place where we say, hey, like, we're all in agreement that we need to modify this road a little bit, and if putting some planters down the middle and maybe even changing the striping to the way that Eagle Vale and East Vale have, where they have the dotted lines on the sides that kind of pinch and they allow for more walking. Anything that pinches the road design. And it's just general traffic calming and road design instead of just throwing up more signs, because people will go, if the road's built like a highway, it doesn't matter if you put a 25-mile-an-hour sign on it, they're gonna drive it like a highway.
But this,
If you're talking about county road, we don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about county road, no.
You're talking about
that's what
Taylor
I'm
and
talking
Fourth.
about.
So I guess county road switches. There's a point where it's in Minturn, and there's a point where it's basically taken by the county, which is around Game Creek, is that right?
Right
On the bump.
It's on the Game Creek bump. So as people come into town, there's not houses and yards and kids that are gonna be playing on that side. I don't know, hopefully not. But as they come into town there and cross the Game Creek, that's when you start running into eco trail users and a whole neighborhood that's gonna be full of people walking around. And so we need to do our best to say like, hey, this is like, you are in a town now, you are in a neighborhood, and you can do that with road design, you can do that with like signage, you can, you can put like a big sign in the median that says like, welcome to Minturn. There's all sorts of things that you can kind of use to indicate to people like, hey, you can change the striping pattern when it hits to that, you could paint something in the road or hang a big banner up, anything that we can do to kind of say like, hey, you're no longer on a highway, like you're in Minturn, let's slow this down.
I think planter boxes is a great idea from Game Creek on into town.
Just to separate out here, I'm not hearing any desire on the stop sign at Minturn Road and Fourth. Is there any, so we can kind of go about that?
Well, I don't think the plow guy's gonna love you at all. Secondly, the way Minturn North is built, that whole thing is offset with a secondary road plus eco trail, which for the love of God, I wish the bikers would actually use it instead of keep cruising down Minturn Road, but that's neither here nor there. My point is the transition is 25-mile-per-hour sign at Game Creek. I just don't see it realistic. The planter box idea works fine in Crested Butte downtown urban area. For Minturn Road, again, Minturn North had the forethought in that case where the entire neighborhood is essentially offset with both a parallel driveway entry, if you will, plus the eco trail between the road.
Man swallowing ditch.
And a man swallowing ditch, yes, that's an excellent way to put it. So wintertime around here, the planter box idea, sure, but I just don't see the point on that road if we control the speed at the three-way intersection, which is the highest risk area. I mean, I live right there, I deal with it every day. I promise you, that is the problem. It is not traffic coming past 4th Street. The sight line, both directions for hazard purposes is substantial.
We don't have all these families living there yet. I guarantee in
I don't disagree with
this
that.
for years as this project goes forward.
Well,
Like the second we get a bunch of people and dogs running around
That
and
goes-
say bikes shouldn't be on the road. No, bikes absolutely and walkers are legally allowed as
Absolutely, and I would go one
else.
step further if we're gonna go down that road and ask the question of what in the hell is that current thing that just got built halfway around the S curve, which last time I checked is nothing more than an asphalt shoulder, as opposed to a sidewalk. Which is not what I believe we agreed to, PUD for Minturn North agreement with the builder, developer. So those of you who haven't been out there, go take a look. Go take a look.
How does this?
My point is the whole pedestrian traffic, what you're talking about in regards to density, movement of pedestrians, bikes, I don't disagree with co-use. I'm just driving at the fact that the road's already been built out. If it worked fine with speed limit signs, if we put in the stop signs, of which don't exist right now, and never have, except that Taylor Road meeting Minturn Road, one stop sign. So if
Why
we're
not?
I'm saying we do choke the traffic there, we need to, not disagreeing with that at all. But the point from Game Creek down to that point, the stop sign at 4th isn't really gonna make a darn difference.
I got passed by a catering truck going 55 miles an hour with my kids out there the other day. It was terrifying.
Why do you oppose, where Taylor meets Minturn Road on the south end, why wouldn't you have a stop sign?
I'm not disagreeing with that, Earl. That's
Okay.
not.
Okay,
Stop right there.
I just wanna make sure I understand. You said no stop signs.
I'm in
on
agreement with the
Minturn
three-way
Road.
stop at Taylor
Let me
and
finish.
Road, completely in violent agreement. I'm in agreement.
Okay,
The only thing I'm talking about is 4th Street and Minturn Road. That's it.
okay,
Otherwise, the rest of it,
I don't have a problem.
again, to your point, I agree that pedestrian traffic, but my point is if you got blown by that truck, is also an enforcement issue, which fortunately, the Eagle County deputy's been out there more recently. There's a variety of other things. I got it. It's your life's purpose on the road piece. I got it.
Yeah, I just like you're gonna stick the kind like our.
So we put a
roads
stop
and
sign,
everything stuff.
we put a stop sign on 4th, and that's it.
I don't know. I think we look at all sorts of traffic calming.
I think you're talking about different things.
Well, yeah,
I'm just talking about.
if there's, we have the direction on, the first two. And then if there's council direction on, because I think there's some things that have to be parsed out about other traffic calming measures, including placing things in the roadway. If there's council direction to explore that, I will do that. The one thing I want to talk about with Jeff and Mike, town attorney, is things that are not typical traffic control devices. If there's going to be liability issues with somebody saying that that's a hazard that could create a liability for the town on a town road, I think we got to sort through what we can do and what we can't do and where the risk is, and then we can come back to you and go, look, these are options if we choose to pursue them.
Yeah, I would call it Crested Butte honestly and see like what they're doing and why, like how it's working, because they're getting rid of speed bumps, they're getting rid of signs, they're getting rid of everything, and they're doing it all through intelligent road design.
And I would be in favor of something around Game Creek, sort of announcing that now you're entering into a different kind of area.
And that I agree, but the
And-
problem is the road's already been designed.
May I finish?
No, I'm just saying, you can't put anything in the middle of that road as it currently exists.
I don't know what that would be that would announce that and that would be consistent with snow plowing
So
and
we're kinda going in
not
circles.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
So-
I would be interested in knowing.
We do have signs coming from US Forest Service on the end of Taylor to communicate that that is a private road from there on, private driveway. So we got that coming.
So, we're not gonna settle that tonight. What we wanna do is give direction. I think Rob's suggesting let him go back and firm that up, is the way to go. And I agree with you, Tom, on 4th and Taylor, as far as stop signs there. And then 4th and Minturn Road and Taylor and Minturn Road, I'd like to see stop signs there. So, is that right?
I'm the same way on that. The
Yeah.
two off of 4th not, and the one on Taylor and Minturn Road, yes.
Okay, and we're hoping we can get that going in the next week or two here, so. Great.
All right.
So again, I just will throw out, I would like some feedback as to what they're doing there. on Minturn Road for the S curve, because all they've done is put in asphalt, which is now being treated as a shoulder, when the intent behind that was to be pedestrian.
I'll talk with Jeff Spinell, and we'll get back on that, and maybe I can have him speak about that at the next meeting, about how that shook out.
Okay, next, now that was the short discussion. So next, we're getting the water treatment plant design and cost estimates walkthrough from Jared Lemke at HDR, our water engineer. Not our water engineer, our water treatment plant designer. You there, Jared?
I am. And I'll take water engineer if you're willing.
There you are.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for having me. I presume my audio is coming through loud and clear.
You betcha.
Cool.
Looking forward to your discussion.
Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen as well. I have a Google Earth image up with a projection of the water plant building.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
That?
He's sharing his screen.
Okay. Can you maximize that, Jared? It's just a part of our screen.
Well, let's see.
Maybe it don't work that way.
I shared my entire screen.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Keep on.
Okay, cool. Well, I wanted to start with this, just kind of make a zoomed out view of the work we've been doing. And so for those of you who haven't been part of the week-to-week ongoings of this project, my name's Jared. I'm working for the company that is working on the design of the new water treatment facility. This water treatment facility is being built to replace the existing plant, which is at the end of its useful life. And today we are simply going to go through our design to date and field questions about our design and how this technical aspects of the water plant will positively impact the town for years to come. So the view that we're looking at right here is in Google Earth, and what we've done is exported our three-dimensional models of the facility into Google Earth. Unfortunately, the imagery in Minturn, and maybe this is fortunately for some in rural communities, is that the imagery that they have is not so detailed. But to those in the know, you'll recognize a couple of landmarks. One being that this view is ideally from the perspective of Tank 3. The new water tank that was constructed 2 or 3 years ago up there on the hill. In here on the foreground at the toe of the slope, that's the existing clear well and chlorination building. Behind that, we have remodeled the Filter 3 building because we are doing some improvements in there. So we have a model of that building based off of the record drawings. And then in the background, on top of what is currently Filters 2 and Filters 1 is the new facility. Don't get too attached to the colors that we see. It's just when we export these models, they turn into a drab gray medieval style of building. So the purpose of this is just to show spatial arrangement and configuration of these facilities. And what I'd like to do is just kind of pan around slowly the operating word, because my computer only has so much horsepower to do that, and you'll see sometimes it's prone to that. So I'm going to hit R. In case you ever work in Google Earth, R always takes you back to center. So you can always use that to get yourself back if you do what I just did. So as we zoom back in here on the plan, it gives a better view where we're planning to place the new building there with respect to the existing facilities. Again, at the top of the screen here, we have the existing clear well and chlorination building in the middle with the white roof, Filter 3, and then on top of the existing filters, our new filtered building. So with that, I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions with respect to the layout and configuration of facilities at the existing site.
Anybody need clarification? Pretty straightforward. Move on, Jared.
Okay. So if we move in to the existing building, and to do that, I'm going to pull our model onto the screen here. And what we're looking at here is a more detailed and in-depth model, and I'll zoom in as much as I can, as much makes sense. So again, this would be from the perspective of Tank 3. We are looking at the north facade, or the side of the building that faces the north right now. So as you drive into the facility, this would be the wall of the building you see, and then you can reference this ridge line with respect to the views we just saw on Google Earth there. This ridge line runs east to west generally. The construction of the building is rather simple. The idea being is we were always and continue to strive towards economical building practices while still providing a quality product that meets the project objectives of a 30-year design life of the facility. So we have a single ridgeline building. The slope of the roof, when we designed the slope of this roof, we considered overall height of the building with the need for snow loading. And as we make the roof more flat, the structure supporting that roof needs to increase in strength. And the best way to do that with steel is to make it thicker, both in depth and gauge of steel. So we optimized the slope of this roof with the supporting structure, considering the anticipated snow loads in Minturn. And that's kind of how we arrived at the slope that we have. So speaking of roof, let's make it go away. I'm going to pull a section plane down, and what you're going to see is it's going to make certain components of the roof disappear. And the first thing that you'll notice that disappears are these orange roof vents. Very familiar, very common, that you see but also don't see on buildings in everyday life. Those are ventilation. And so for cooling, we are relying on natural convection, or not natural convection, forced convection through natural ventilation. And so we'll be pulling air out of the building through these exhaust fans on the roof to obtain cooling. There's no plan to have forced air conditioning inside the process areas of the facility. We will have forced air conditioning inside the electrical gear room and the operations room, which I'm highlighting over on the east side of the facility, that we'll make our way to here in a moment. So as you can see, as I pulled that roof down, I'll just kind of oscillate it. So, and what you can kind of see there, I'll highlight one of them, is a roof structure member. And as I pull that roof back up, you can see it come back into view, hidden behind the roof there. Again, what I was talking about with the roof slope was the depth of this beam right here. And as that roof slope got shallower, this beam would have to get deeper. That would impact our ability in space to run stuff being pipes, ductwork, conduit raceways, etc., and also increase the cost of the structural members that support the roof. So again, that's just something to look at as we pull this roof down. Pre-engineered metal building construction, and so that is a dead giveaway. So you'll see these roof structures appear about every 14 to 18 feet in this facility. Every pre-engineered metal building you'll ever see has very similar structures that look a lot like this. So if you haven't noticed them yet, you'll start to notice them as you move about town in your travels. This is by far the most economical way to construct an industrial style building. It's very common. It's very suitable for this, and it also meets the objective of being, we need a building and we need it for the least expensive way possible, but also suitable for our purpose. And so that's how we arrive at this style of construction for a facility. So these structures make up the pre-engineered metal building, and then the walls. Those are a different animal. So I'm just going to kind of highlight those, one as a nervous tick, and then also to secondly to draw your eye to these walls.
I just have a question inside there. I forget what the name of the units that you buy to increase capacity. What are those called?
Modules?
The modules. There's another name for them. I think it begins with S. Skids, yes. Is there room in there for additional skids?
Yes.
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 Like a couple, like how many skids?
So on each of the existing skids that we're providing, there's room for 4 additional modules, so you can increase the capacity of each module. That's one of the reasons that this particular supplier had an attractive offering, is they had extra room, somewhat built in to their capacity here. So during testing, if and this is common, during testing, if they're not able to meet some of the performance parameters, they've provided extra space for them to make that up on the quick. And so I don't want to say it's simple, but for lack of a better term, it's simple enough just to simply take off this end plate, add a couple more modules and plumb them into the system and put that cap back on there. So Lynn, we both have capacity to, or flexibility to increase the capacity of each skid. And then it's tight, but you could potentially add a 3rd skid in the future. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just so there's the potential, there's enough space in there to basically double the capacity.
Well, I don't know about double. Why would you want to double the capacity?
I just want to know what I mean, I understand you can add more modules and you can add 1 more skid.
So that's.
But is the double too much? I mean, is this potential to grow it by 30% or 40%?
Yeah, there's certainly room to grow, and the design capacity of the facility right now is for the maximum day demand of Minturn as identified in the 2019 capital improvements plan. If we take a look at the actual flow data in Minturn versus the anticipated capacity of these modules, it tells a story of how we landed on these skids. Each skid is rated for 0 or 300,000 gallons per day. And a typical, the data shows that Minturn typically consumes around 150 to up to 300,000 gallons per day. And so these modules very simply turn down to 50% of their capacity, right? And that goes back to the pump system and the instruments and the flow meters and all of that. So when we take a look at sizing treatment equipment, we take a look at what do you need on the high end, and then we use modularity to smartly design the capacity and build it up in kind of these, I want to call it quantized steps that make sense for your system. So right now we have 2 300,000 gallon per day skids for a total ultimate capacity on day 1 of 600,000 gallons per day, which again equilibrates to the anticipated maximum day demand of Minturn with it's more than 1,100 SFE equivalents. So that does incorporate the anticipated developments that are presently ongoing. And I don't believe Minturn has ever had a 600,000 gallon production day from the data that I've seen. So I think you have plenty of headroom in this plant without being overly irresponsible in the sizing of it.
So just to be clear, this couldn't ever do, we couldn't expand our capacity to add another several hundred more water users than we are currently projected to have.
Yeah, if you wanted to dramatically increase the capacity of this plant, we would be talking about potentially making the building a little bit larger, bumping it out in the east-west direction to allow more room for those skids, and then also increasing our capacity of our pretreatment system. I don't know if I want to call it a pretreatment system, but our oxidation and coagulation system over here, and that's these 2 tanks that operate in series. So pretty much it's not as simple as just adding the skids. We would want to take a look at the entire plant and from a holistic point of view, what makes sense based on this anticipated demand.
Well, Jared, maybe just to wrap up that question, that point, can you clarify? I mean, we designed to roughly 700 to 800 SFEs is what we're designing to, I thought, right?
I think it's the 1100 number. I'd have to pull up. Let me see if I can find that CIP. And
Because the problem when we talked with Jared about this is having the ability to go to a higher capacity is not just about the skids and the membranes, it's also about the pumps and the pipes. And so once you start looking at that, you get this cascading effect of what needs to occur to have a much larger capacity. And that's kind of how the costs start to grow. So there's some room to work with the membranes, but if you really want to go much higher, you start talking about escalating costs of pumps, piping, tanks, etc. If that,
When we were gonna add Battle Mountain on there, it almost doubled our cost.
yeah. So there is maybe room for an additional skid or whatever, but if we're trying to provide a lot more water, we get these escalating costs from the increased pump size, need for increased electrical and a larger transformer.
So it's not just a question of simply providing a slightly larger building for more skids in the event that something might happen that would require us to, whether it's Dow Junction or Battle Mountain or whatever, that would require us to service a lot more users.
Yeah, maybe Jared, you understanding what Lynn is kind of alluding to here, and we kind of talked to you about that a few weeks ago.
Certainly. Yep. Yeah. So you hit it on the very well, Rob. It's everything. If you want to double the size of the plant, it's not a simple factor of just adding more modules. Everything needs to be considered. We talked a little bit about our oxidation and coagulation system over here on the eastern side, but we also have chemical storage and feed systems. Those are designed for an approximate 30-day storage. And the pumps are designed to dose at rates that are commensurate with the anticipated flow rates. If you start changing that on the order of doubling it, you could get into a situation where these barrels or these drums that I'm highlighting, which are 55 gallons each, which is very common and typical for a plant of the size we're looking at, could turn into totes. They could turn into several 100-gallon tanks. And once you start having storage tanks, all of a sudden this, what some may consider to be huge, but I consider this to be a relatively small chemical storage area that's going to grow, both in requirements for storage tanks and just spatial around it, just because we simply have more chemicals stored. Another thing that could happen, right now we fall below the maximum allowable quantity for storage of hazardous liquids in here, which is a benefit to us, because we don't have to run fire suppression system in a passive fire suppression system, essentially sprinklers up above here. If we increase the amount of chemical we're storing, we're going to trip the scales and get into that requirement. And so that's going to add a cost that we presently don't have to double the size of this building. So I'm probably not hitting everything because it's hard to say what happens if we double the size of the plant. But it's certainly doable, but it's not going to come without a lot of costs. Some I've identified here, others just haven't crossed my mind yet.
I think, Lynn, like your question is a good one, and it's kind of a frustrating situation that we're in, is that we're trying to design for where we are today with a little room to work with. But if we wanted to go higher, like the costs just start to really grow. And I think it's challenging for us where we are at this capacity. So I think the conversation for our future has to be about new developments that are bringing in, 100 or more SFVs. We're going to have to find a way to fund a significant expansion before we can do that.
This basically covers 750, and that's it.
It kind of covers our today with a little bit of room. I think it's.
No. We have, yeah. Wait, let's back up a little bit. We have 750 that we're using now, right?
Or proposed with current commitments.
With the school district and all
Right.
that.
Now, Dow Junction's not a consideration. That's going to be a well system if we ever develop that. So because that would definitely make us double the size. But when we did our CIP in 2019, the improvements to the system, we're anticipating the ability to grow by 450 SFE. Now, so how does that figure into the capacity of the current design? So we'd be at what, 750 now, 450 added, that's around 1,700 SFE, right?
Or 1,200, yeah. So I've pulled that up on the screen here.
Thank you.
So it's like, it's like it's room for today's commitments with some growth.
Okay, so I'm getting the number 1,100.
I think 11 to 1,200 is what he has.
Yeah.
1,178.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we keep going down this rabbit hole right now, honestly. Are we revisiting the design of this thing, or do we want to let him go through his explanation of the design and then ask questions?
If you just want clarity and some understanding.
1,178.
Yes, I
in
got
its- in
that
its
now,
present
Tom.
form.
Thank you very much.
No?
Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Let's keep going, Jared.
Sure. So we left off on the walls of the building, and there was two ways to approach that. The way we landed on were the structurally insulated panels, and of course the building needs walls. You're not going to get away from that, and so there you could do just a light gauge metal with batt insulation, or you could do structurally insulated panels. Our architects took a look at it. And at the end of the day, our evaluation yielded that it's about the same and much more suitable for the level of service of this building to go with these structurally insulated panels. And so what that is imagine an ice cream sandwich, but instead of the cocoa, I don't know what that is, dough on either side, it's light gauge metal that's textured and coated with an epoxy paint, and then inside there's styrofoam, basically to give you the R value you need to satisfy current building codes. And so the insulation will be Santochucin 2 layers of metal, and that will go on the outside of the building. And those again are called structurally insulated panels. Again, very common building material that we often see on pre-engineered metal buildings. And the same style of building that we did for Breckenridge 5 or 6 years ago at their 4.5 million gallon a day water plant. So about, 7 times larger than this one. So they had a pre-engineered metal building with these columns and the structurally insulated panel walls. On the outside of the building, you'll see that I'm highlighting here. It's about a waist-high wainscot. This will be CMU or similar. The reason we're going with this, again, is twofold, and it has to do with the environment in which this building is going to reside. So stone on the bottom half of the metal wall panels here, one protects the lower part of those metal wall panels from the freeze thaw and ground precipitation. And two, something I know personally from clearing snow at my house, it protects from snow blowers and snow plows. So you don't want to damage your metal wall panel with any sort of snow removal equipment. And again, it helps protect that metal from sitting down there as the snow melts on it and rusts it away. So you'll see that here. This is also a similar style of construction that we responded to the potential development of that pump station that's being designed for the school district. They'll have a general metal facility with a CMU wainscot around the outside skirt of the building. So that covers the structures and the walls. I'll continue. You don't need to spend a whole lot of time here, but we have doors. We've done an audit on these doors so that they satisfy fire and life safety. Again, to meet fire safety code, we have to prove that we have means of egress for up to 75 feet in all directions. So at 60%, we had an extra door. And as we went through that process, we were able to eliminate one door on the south side here. So basically the door I have highlighted used to be over here where my cursor is. And we had one other door next to this overhead door over here. We were able to eliminate one door and put it over here. Again, when we made that decision, we looked at, well, it saves cost, of course, but does it cause a detriment to any kind of safety or comfort in the facility? And we didn't think so. This is not a common access point. There's plenty of other doors on the facility on the front, on the north side and the east side that we envision will be the common points of access. And so that's why we're able to eliminate a single door. So it was something that came up at our previous design, and I just wanted to hit it here about the number of doors we were showing. One question came up, don't need an answer now, but as far as key card access on the doors, we can certainly put it on all doors or we can put it on some doors. Rob, we have an email chain going with us about whether we want key card access at all doors or just some doors. Again, economic decision usually goes into that, so we can look into that later. And then we have, you can see periodically around the outside of the building, especially at points of access, exterior lamps. And I don't know if you guys have dark night sky, or I think it's just called dark sky regulations, but these will certainly be compliant with dark sky, just because I own a telescope and I'm cognizant of that stuff. So that about does it for the outside of the building. I'll just kind of pan around here and see what I'm missing, if I'm missing anything. If you guys have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. Okay, I think that about does it. I try to not make people seasick with the constant motion here. So let's go ahead and pop the roof all the way off of all the buildings, and then we'll take a good look inside here and kind of walk us through the facility. And apologize again, sometimes this program gets me good. When we geolocate it, it can pop off sometimes. Okay. So I'm going to get my Z-axis back, and then we'll just go in. Okay. So I mentioned earlier, we have air conditioning for the electrical gear room and the operations room, and these are very similar to what we saw at 60%. In fact, I think only a couple of changes occurred. The first one being is this wall I just highlighted. This might be getting too in the weeds, but we shifted it about 22 inches just because we could, based off of the removal of our dedicated mechanical room over here, orientation of this new coag aux system that we put in. And it's always nice to have extra room in an electrical gear building. I've never seen an electrical room, well, I've seen one once, that I walked into and said, yep, this is too big. And so it just seems to be that those big gray boxes, the MCCs, motor control centers, that are going to hold starters for all of the motors, and transformers and lighting panels, just seem to take up a great amount of wall space. And so we have adequate for that in here. That's been well designed and considers all of the equipment we're going to be putting in here. Directly north of that, and on the northeast corner of the building, kind of scan over to there, we have the operations room. And on the north wall, you can see we have built-in cabinetry and a bench top for spur-of-the-moment analyses of grab samples for chlorine, turbidity, pH, etc. And then a small sink, not meant for washing dishes, but meant for just, cleaning up glassware, etc. And then we show it just because, again, we could. We had an extra room in this room, and it's like, oh, that'd be a nice place for a fridge. And so from time to time, you can use a fridge to store water samples if you need to increase their shelf time from grab, or you could just have a fridge there for sodas. So again, this isn't part of the contract. It's something our architects just slipped in because once we laid out this room, there was what looks to be like a 5-foot opening in this alcove that we're framing around. Again, I'll select it, but you can see back in here we have a building column. And so we framed around it because this is a more occupied space, makes it a nicer area to be. And there was this alcove, so they just popped in a fridge because they're architects and they do that stuff. On the south wall of this building, you'll see 2 more big gray boxes. And I'll explain what those are here in a second. The one I have highlighted, that is the local control panel that's being furnished by our membrane supplier. And this is going to house all of the analog input, basically the inputs and outputs, receivers, programmable logic controller, transformer, etc. All of the auxiliary control components that they need to control their system. And so we're going to put it in this room, and it's going to sit right next to the master plant control panel. And so this control panel is going to not only communicate with the vendor supplied control panel, but also the non-vendor supplied components, such as these tank mixers that I'm highlighting in each one of these tanks. And we'll have instruments on top of these tanks that tell us how full they are. We'll have flow meters and automatic control valves on this pipe that control the water level in these tanks from Cross Creek. All of that stuff is going to be visible and controlled through a 14-inch touch panel screen on this panel. And then this panel is going to connect to this panel via Ethernet cable. And then further, the HMI, which stands for Human Machine Interface or Operator Interface Terminal, basically the touch screen that you can manipulate plant processes with, can be accessed remotely. The exact methodology, I don't know if we've worked out 100% yet, but I know we're close. I know discussions have been had on how we want to be able to communicate with this plant from a remote location, and at minimum, monitor it for alarms that need to call out. For example, we lost chlorine at the plant. Somebody should respond to that because you have to have chlorine in your drinking water. Okay. So I will now go to, I guess, the process as water flows into the plant. I'm going to highlight this pipe right here. It may be hard for y'all to see, but I've highlighted a pipe that is on the eastern side of the building. This is going to be a pipe that is under gravity pressure from Cross Creek. We don't show the whole thing, but if we were to show this whole pipe, it's buried where this section I have highlighted. It wraps around the building on the south side and connects to the existing pipeline that brings water down from Cross Creek. So we're going to be intercepting that pipe, installing a new buried pipeline that wraps all the way around the building and comes into the building here. And after it comes in the building, elbows up, and then it's going to go into a piping segment with a series of things that are going to happen. And the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to meter the flow coming in from Cross Creek, and then we're going to pass that water into a motorized plug valve. This motorized plug valve will modulate its position in order to maintain a set point water level in these tanks. The reason we need that boils down to the fact that Cross Creek's water, the equivalent water surface of Cross Creek, is about 16 feet higher than the floor of the plant. And there was two things we could do there. We could make the entire building taller and make these tanks 18 feet tall. So that way, when there's no water flowing at all, the water level in these tanks would never go above 18 feet because that's what the water level is in Cross Creek, equivalent to the floor of the plant. That seemed like an expensive proposition to make the entire building taller to make these tanks taller. So we kept the tanks shorter. They're 13-foot tall tanks, and we added in a valve that is going to open and close to maintain about, I think it's 11.5 feet of water depth in these tanks. So that's why we have that instrumentation. When we get to these tanks, a couple of things are going to happen. And the reason we added them was based on our most current water quality sets that John has been taking for us in Cross Creek. So these tanks are intended to operate in series. So I'll highlight this elbow right here. This elbow goes into tank number 1. Inside tank number 1, we are primarily going to be adding an oxidizing component, so either chlorine or potassium permanganate. And the idea here is to help oxidize iron and or manganese that does exist in the Cross Creek water, but not in majorly concerning concentrations, but enough to be worth it. And then also to help initiate our process for TOC removal. That's total organic carbon. Total organic carbon is present in spades in Cross Creek. And to satisfy our surface water, the long-term 2 surface water treatment rule, we need to have a plan for reducing total organic carbon in a new water treatment process by 35%, given our alkalinity in this water. And so through the process of oxidation and coagulation in these 2 tanks, we hope to do that here. So tank number 1, 5,000 gallons, gives us a slightly more than 10-minute residence time at a maximum flow rate. Water will come in here. This mixer that I've highlighted right there, and you can kind of see inside that tank, is going to operate relatively slowly, probably no more than 60 RPM. So every second, those blades will spin 1 revolution, right? So that's about how slow that's going to go. And the objective here is to encourage mixing but not shearing. And then water goes in relatively high at this elbow, and it's going to come out down below here. This segment of piping that I'm just working my way through with highlights here is going to carry that water from this tank into tank number 2. In this center segment of piping between the 2 tanks, we are aiming to inject a coagulant. What that coagulant is going to do, it's a metal salt. It is going to encourage the coagulation, which is a term for grab a bunch of particles and bring them all together. And when that action occurs, the unit density of all those particles together is greater than water. Typically, what we use that for is to then settle those components out, but we're not taking advantage of any settling in this plant, and you can see that with a second mixer in this tank. What we're doing here is trying to make large coagulant particles that can be filtered out in our membranes. So we're just trying to grab very, very small, almost colloidal particles that may typically pass through our membranes. And those colloidal particles make up our TOC. And as we coagulate them, we turn them into larger particles that can then be filtered out of our process. And so that is hoping to occur, that will occur in this second tank. And then the water will come out of this elbow on the back side and then go through this segment of piping. It's going to go under the slab and then come up over here at this T. Oops, I don't know why it did that. But if I select that pipe right there, so I'm going to keep that pipe selected and swing us underneath the facility right quick. So you can see that piping segment. It's probably a little deeper than it needs to be, but this is the pipe out of tank number 2, and then this is the pipe into the membrane feed pumps. And so we went under slab merely to provide a nice walking path through here, good accessibility through this plant. If those tanks aren't in use, you'll see that we have a pipe along the backside here, back behind these tanks. That's simply a bypass for manual operation there. And so the intent there would be to close this valve and then open that valve, and you could bypass these 2 tanks. At that point, it's okay to leave this pipe pressurized because that water never leaks out of pipes, so I'm told. And we can simply feed our membranes directly without the use of those 2 tanks. So we have the tanks in there for normal operation, and then a bypass should those tanks need maintenance or some other operation done to them and they can't be in service at that point. So hopefully I'm working through this quick enough, and not everybody's asleep already, but I'm going to pause there because that's our biggest revision from the 60% documents is these 2 tanks sitting right here. We've always had room for them. But like I said, based off of the most recent water quality data we've been seeing, it became clear to us that we should and we need to address TOC removal in our process.
Okay, you got questions? Ask them now.
And I will say, yesterday, we just initiated our internal quality assurance and quality control checking for this project. And what that is we just have each specific discipline, so electrical engineers, plumbing engineers, process engineers, structural and architects. All of their work is being checked by a third party, obviously within HDR, but somebody that wasn't really part of this project. Every reputable engineering company does this, but basically go through and have a second set of eyes on what we've done and how we put it together to make sure that quality and design is sound. I'll put it that way. Okay. So what I guess I didn't finish that thought. What it means is that we're going to be submitting our 90% design for this at the end of this month. And so we're going to have 2 weeks of these quality checks, and then we'll give ourselves 2 weeks to recover from those, wrap up our design at the 90% level, and then submit it to Minturn. So there will be other opportunities for questions and comments on these from the town.
I have just one more.
Yeah.
What's this square footage of the building? Just so I have an idea of how big we're talking.
Let's see here. It is about 60 feet wide and call it 130 feet long. Don't make me do that math in my head. 60 times 130. 7,800 square feet-ish.
Thanks.
Sure.
If any members of council or members of the public that have watched this, you have questions, please just email them to me and get that to Jared, get you a response if you have concerns or trying to understand how this works. Be glad to have that conversation with you.
Absolutely. Okay, I will kind of go through this because there's a lot of details in here that's probably not worth discussing in this format, but basically I'll call out the large equipment that we see here. Again, this segment of piping is getting water from our tanks, and we are going to be adding energy to it with these pumps and pressurizing it at such a pressure so that we can feed the water through the membrane skids, which I'm highlighting now, and then carry it all the way up to tank number 3. And so that's what these pumps, these 2 pumps right here will be doing for us. The intent, again, since each skid is at 0.3 MGD, each one of these pumps is rated for the same 0.3 MGD, providing a firm capacity of 300,000 gallons per day and a total capacity of 600,000 gallons per day. Those pumps will pump water through a strainer. These strainers are very large in the scope of water filtration, but they're there to provide protection to the membranes. We certainly don't want grit and pine needles and stuff you can see making it into the membrane modules, because these membrane modules are made up of a thin layer of polymer. I wouldn't say they're easily damaged, but they can be damaged by stuff that's not supposed to be in there. Hence why we have these automatic backflushing strainers in line that will pump through. Water, again, is pumped over through a series of pipe into the membrane skids. From here, we're going to create 2 streams of water. The stream we like, the stream that's good, is filtered water. That water is going to be dosed with free chlorine or sodium hypochlorite and soda ash to increase its pH and alkalinity. And then that water is going to carry on up to tank number 3. The second stream of water is going to be a concentrated solution of water that didn't make it through the membranes. And so water, of course, will, but the particles, most of which we cannot see, will be stuck on those membranes. And periodically, these membranes will go through a backflushing cycle just to bump that stuff off of them, and we're going to waste it away. And when I say waste it away, we refer to that as backwash waste. Backwash waste will drain through this tank, which is essentially a wide spot in the line. So a membrane backwash, think of it as an immense amount of water in a very short period of time. That water is going to just dump into this tank, and then from there, it's an open drain over to filter number 3, your current drinking water filter. So that filter is going to remain in service generally as is. And then we're intending to use it to filter our backwash waste and then return the fraction of water back into the head of the plant. And the objective being that the wastewater, if you want to call it that, can be filtered and recycled back into our process and increase the efficiency at which this plant operates. It's a very common practice. EPA regulates it through the filtration backwash rule, backwash recycle rule. And that basically has 2 consequences that are of note for us. The first one being is if you are going to recycle your backwash wastewater, it needs to be to the very front of the process. And for us, that means it needs to be injected into these 2 tanks. And you can see that, I didn't do a very good job of introducing it, but this green pipe that I'm kind of highlighting right here, this is a pressurized line that is getting water pumped to it from the basement of filter 3. So we're going to be installing 2 pumps in the bottom of filter 3 to capture the filtrate out of the bottom of that slow sand filter and pump it back into our process through this green pipe, which you can see snakes its way around these walls. And messing up my buttons here, and can either inject into tank number 1 here, or it can go into the bypass line, and that's regulated through a couple of valves here. The rest of the equipment in this membrane area, so again, we covered the pumps, we covered the skids and the backwash tank. This tank right here and this adjacent skid is the CIP solution tank. CIP for us stands for clean in place. From time to time, these membranes will go into an acid bath. Acids are very good at dissolving metals, in our case, calcium and or magnesium, the 2 components that make up hardness. That stuff will tend to scale on membrane surfaces. And again, from time to time, if you make a low pH solution of water, that is very good at eluting and dissolving that calcium and magnesium scale off of those membranes. Scale on membranes just simply reduces their efficiency, right? It's a clogged filter at that point. And so again, this is a necessary component. Every membrane system in the world has some form of clean in place system that comes with it. This process is, I don't want to say automatic, but once the process initiates, it has its own set of parameters that it'll go through as far as, pumping and timing and water temperature and acid solution strength, etc. The waste from that process, so after it goes through and does its acid bath, we have a solution that is generally low in pH. We're not talking battery acid here by any stretch, but it's generally low in pH and laden with total dissolved solids. So it's got dissolved calcium, for example, in there. That waste is going to be drained to what is now the existing clear well at the facility. So we're taking advantage of that existing sub or below grade tank, and we're going to use that to capture the instantaneous, when I say instantaneous, I mean over a period of a couple of minutes, drainages from the CIP system waste cycle. At that point, the waste in that tank is going to be neutralized and dechlorinated for ultimate disposal into Cross Creek through the discharge permit that we have for this water plant. Up here in the top left corner, the items I'm highlighting now is air compressors and air receivers. The backwash cycle that I discussed and the clean in place cycle that I discussed require a lot of air. So they're air assisted. Basically, they'll apply air to the bottom of a module, which you can see is about a vertical tube. And just imagine if you're bubbling air through there, how much agitation that induces. And agitation is very good for knocking particles off of a membrane. And so that's what this air system back here is for. And you can see all the large air piping that goes with it and will eventually make its way to these membranes. Over here, we have some filtrate piping. This is very similar to what we saw at 60%. This carries the water from the membranes from the orange to the yellow, and then out down below grade, and then onto tank number 3. The 2 green pipes that are coming in, that is water from groundwater well 3 and groundwater well 4. The reason we're able to inject that here is because at this point, membrane filtered water has the very same disinfection requirements that are stipulated by EPA, as does groundwater. And so from the perspective of the EPA, these 2 water qualities are similar when it comes to disinfecting. So that's a benefit to Minter, and that's one of the reasons we recommended and ultimately landed on a membrane treatment process, was so that we could do this. But very simply put, each well comes in individually. We can monitor the flow rate of each well individually with this flow meter that I'm highlighting here and here. It tees into the filtrate line. And then you can see on the wall over here, teeing down into here, we have chlorine injection. So again, this is that sodium hypochlorite, which is basically industrial strength bleach. And then to the right of that, that is soda ash solution. Again, soda ash being injected to increase the alkalinity of the water and adjust the pH into a desired range. The reason that you will want soda ash is for impacts to corrosivity. What you don't want in a distribution system is corrosive water. Corrosive water can lead to non-compliance with the lead and copper rule, and higher pH and higher alkalinity waters are more favorable to stabilizing scales. So on the inside of your pipe walls in your distribution system, there's just inevitably going to be scales of deposited metals on there. We just talked about how acids dissolve metals. Acid is characterized by a pH of at 7 or less on the scale. And so if you have a distribution system that is a pH 7 or less than 8, basically, you're kind of in a corrosive water zone, and you could be dissolving those stabilized scales off your pipe walls, and then you could have non-compliant samples of lead and copper in your distribution system, two things that are regulated and not good for human health. So that's why we're adding soda ash into the water, or have the option for discretionary addition of soda ash into the water, at least, to help manage compliance with the lead and copper rule and basically increase the quality of drinking water. Since we're talking about it, I'll go to our soda ash room. I'll just spin all the way around. Why not? I'm going to Bob Ross it here. Okay, and then I'll lower this a touch. So the reason soda ash has its own room, multitude of reasons. The primary one being is the raw form of soda ash is a powder. And when this is purchased, it comes on a pallet, 50-pound bags. And so inside this room, we have plenty of room to store pallets stacked with 50-pound sacks of soda ash. And those 50-pound sacks are manually added into the hopper, which is this slanted component on top of the spaceship looking thing here. I'm going to click out of here so it's not so highlighted. Basically what this device does is it's going to take the powder that you load into the hopper, use a gravimetric screw to load it into the bottom tank here. This bottom tank is full of water, and it's going to make a soda ash solution, at which point we know the strength of that solution, and there will be a metering pump in this room that carries that soda ash through this blue pipe over to where we saw it on the filtrate wall over here. Other chemicals in the plant, we are storing in these bays. And the reason we have bays was to, because we have non-compatible chemicals, our fire and life safety engineer did a review for us and concurred that these bays are necessary. Yes, they kind of look like a restroom at Skate City, but they're needed to separate each one of these chemicals. So we are storing, again, sodium hypochlorite in the largest bay here because that is by far our largest consumed chemical. So there's room for extra barrels and or a tote in here. And just as an example, we show 3 dosing pumps on the wall here. One of these dosing pumps is for the membrane clean in place system. And then the other 2, probably these 2, since they're next to one another, are for just general disinfection addition to the water going out. We have sulfuric acid, citric acid, potassium permanganate, and a coagulant. And so those are the chemicals that we're storing in this facility. We have 2 spare bays for future chemicals. Again, we have the room. Eliminating these won't make the building any smaller. And we found that it's always nice to have extra room for extra chemicals in the future, especially increases your resiliency against potential for deteriorated water quality due to either the who knows what's or more ever present is the threat of wildfire. So having this flexibility we think is a good thing, and so that's why we left it in, because again, getting rid of it doesn't buy you back the value that you lose by doing so. So we have 2 extra bays for chemicals in here. And I guess that kind of takes us through. I mean, there's some details I could nitpick, but that kind of takes us through largely what your facility is going to look like. So I'm going to pause there and hydrate.
Okay, any final questions for Jerry?
Are the tanks gonna be in operation all the time or just when we have TFC?
You're talking about the processing tanks, the 2 big ones?
The raw water tanks. They can be in operation all the time. It's certainly not going to hurt. Operating these at all times could have positive benefits for the longevity of the membranes, both on a micro scale, so periods between backwash and just long term of time between replacement. So prepping the water to be more conducive for filtration is going to help in that regard. And then really your only cost is, I think these are 1 horsepower mixers. It's not a lot. And some chemical costs there. Otherwise, if the water doesn't show a need for it, it's the operator's discretion as to whether these tanks should be in use.
Okay. Thanks, Jared. I appreciate the presentation. It's very thorough. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll be talking to you.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So I'm going to skip over future agenda items. And at this point, we want to adjourn into an executive session. Do we have a motion to, where's the, Gusty got this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn regular session and reconvene into executive session. Executive session for the purpose of conferencing with the town attorney to receive legal advice on topics of nuisance protection at Minturn Cemetery District pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024B.
I'll second.
Motion by Gusty, second by Eric. Eric, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We're just gonna stay in here, or are you moving?
We need to go upstairs or?
You guys are gonna be upstairs.
Appreciate more about the framing.
Let's go upstairs, guys.
The beams.
You need to leave. I'm saying hold all questions to the end. He's gonna get into detail more than you ever wanted to know.